This is Dante. You're now tuned in to Bupodcast.
Dante, my good brother. It's a good it's really good to see you, man. It's really good to see you. I appreciate you coming. We're gonna talk about some things today. You're here today because I want to hear your story. You got a great story. And I feel like a lot of people my age and a lot of people your age can really benefit from your story, hearing it because they may or may not be going through some of the things that you went through in your past. So I think it's good to have you here today to kind of shed some light on what you've been through and how you were able to navigate through that part of your life and get to where you are today.
Thank you.
So let's get right into it. So, when was the moment that you've noticed or felt like you needed to change your past on what you went through? Like the exact moment where you realized, like, okay, like I had enough. Like this is it. Like I had enough. I want change. I need change. I need to do better. I want to be better.
Well, there were several moments, but the pivotal moment, I was in church one night. It was the summertime, and it was during a revival. But before then, there were quite a few moments. One of them was when I tried cocaine, right? And it was a different high. Now, I was on, like Perks and Xannies, but the cocaine didn't last very long. The
Hmm.
high didn't, and it was kind of expensive, and I couldn't afford that. So I couldn't afford to add nothing else on. So that was one point. Another point was when I kept getting locked up. That was another thing. So there were several points, but the one point that when I decided to change was the point that I changed for the past 9 years.
Okay, so explain that. You said you walked into the church on you said a Friday night. You said
It was a
oh,
Thursday.
a Thursday night. What
Uh-huh.
was like? How did that become like? What was your thought process when you walked into the church?
There was no thought process. It was just routine.
Hmm.
I was not a church. I was a church kid, and
Hmm.
I was always in church, and even through like drug addiction and alcoholism and stuff, I still went,
Hmm.
but I wasn't functioning. Because we weren't supposed to do that. You can't
Right.
leave. So I went in just I was going. It was an all week long service. It was a Sunday to Sunday. We have every June, and this particular night I went in, and I don't remember thinking anything to myself
Hmm.
like I'm going to go in here and get saved. I was just there, and I don't remember what the preacher preached about. I remember who the preacher was, but I don't remember what he preached about. I don't remember that moment at all. I just remember going up to the front of the church, and I had it in the back of my mind that I wanted a change, but I had done that before.
Hmm.
But this night it just happened, and I mean, when I say it happened, it was all the people call them theatrics, but it was just a move, and I was confident at that point. Now, of course, the next morning when you wake up and different thoughts come through your mind, it's like, well, no, that's not it. But it was, and that was it.
So you walked into that church and you got saved and delivered, and the addiction just.
Addiction went away. Now I'll tell you. All right, first of all, I was on pills. It was Perks and Xannies. One balanced the other, but most of the time it's just all um, alcohol, not beers or coolers. Like hard liquor
Yeah.
or whatever, and cigarettes all the time. The next night, this was June 30th. It was Thursday, June 30th. The next night, I did get drunk, right, at a birthday party.
This was after you.
After I ran around the
Okay.
church and all that stuff on that Thursday night. Now, Friday night, got drunk at a birthday party. The next day, I woke up, hungover and
Hmm.
everything, and I was still smoking cigarettes and all. But I never drank after that, and that was July 1st. I never drank after that, and subsequently, I never took a drug after that, and it just went on throughout the month, and so I woke up and I started drinking water and just doing different stuff, and I
Hmm.
was waiting. What I was fearing was the withdrawal, and I think that
Yeah.
that's what a lot of people are afraid of with certain addictions, and like painkillers and like fentanyl and all that stuff is on the rise right now. And I think that I know that a lot of people, because I was one of them, you don't want to withdraw, so you stay high all the time. And it's a sacrifice sometimes, but it's also, it's necessary. It's a physical addiction. So I started filling the time with different things, and I knew that was the Lord that helped me from that, but the withdrawal never came. And then a month later, actually August 3rd, I woke up looking around and thinking what I was supposed to be doing at the time. I said, oh man, you're supposed to smoke a cigarette. And I had noticed that I hadn't smoked since July 31st, which was a Sunday. I didn't notice till a Wednesday morning, so that was another divine intervention. And that's what I took it as. That's what I know it was, because people ask, how did you do it? I say, I didn't do anything. I asked the Lord to take it from me years ago, and finally.
You did play a major part in that as well. Not saying that, the Lord didn't, save and deliver you from that, but you also need to take some accountability and credit for what you did to stay away from drugs and alcohol, right? Because, waking up the day that you woke up and really walking into that church and really, being delivered, like after that is what really mattered, is what you did after the fact. So what you did after the fact, like, you got to give yourself some credit for. And, because yes, the Lord did save and deliver you, but you actually did the legwork to not use, and you chose to go down that route and continue to not use. So, come on, man, lighten up a little bit and give yourself some credit for doing the legwork, because you did it. Like,
well, yeah, it is an accomplishment. It is. And now you say to take credit for it. I will, take some accountability for it, and I thank God for it. But credit is such a strong word,
That's one of the problems in our community and amongst Black men.
Sure.
Why do you feel like credit is such a strong word? Because you like to give yourself credit on your accomplishments. But I'll let you answer.
Well, I mean, it's true that sometimes, if it's a group effort, then there's credit, to be shared or whatever. So yeah, I guess it is a collaboration, because I asked for God's help and He gave it to me, and I ran with it. Now that's one thing that I did do. I ran with it because I knew that I had to do this, and I knew this is what I wanted. The same way if you ask God for a job, then you get the job, you could be making however many figures, but you got to get up and you got to go to work every morning,
So that's you doing the legwork. So for that part,
yes,
you have to take credit for.
Yes. So I do take credit for that. I take credit for maintaining that, because I have.
Because it's something hard to maintain, right? You said 9 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for 9 years straight, you maintain
none. However, now
years straight, you
said it was hard, and this is the thing, and this is what makes my story amazing to me and to a lot of people. Well, people don't know, and you might say, and somebody else might say, well, how do you do it, or it's never been a time. It wasn't hard for me. It was something that I wanted so bad. I won't say secretly, but yeah, secretly, because I wasn't going around telling people I wanted.
Right, because that's not something that you were proud of that's not something that you're going to go around and just be like,
I want drugs.
Right.
Well, I did. Everybody knew. Some people say now, I have even some people that I was around that said they didn't know, or they never saw me like that. And I'm like, but you did. Long story short, it's not hard for me. And I have a friend at church, and she was on crack for 20 something years. And her story was exactly the same. But I might call her and say, God, I want to eat something that I'm not supposed to eat or whatever. But it was never a time that I called her or we called each other or told each other that we had some kind of desire for a drug, because there was none. and there is none. You know what I
Right.
mean? And right after I got saved, I started having car accidents, family, people not speaking to me, whatever. It's crazy how you could cuss out a room full of people and insult everybody, and then the next day everybody, oh no, you cool, you was on this, that, and the other. But the minute you aren't doing anything to anybody, I mean, just random stuff came up. So
Yeah.
it's like, okay, whatever. And I just went through that. But those would be the times that I would, sit at the dining room table and get drunk or smoke 2 cigarettes back to back instead of just one every half hour. And nothing said one time. I started smoking on July 31st. August 13th, we had a block party, and some stuff had went down. I mean, like some real stuff had went down at the block party. So me and my friend, we had went to the bar that my cousin worked at, where I would get drunk for free. But I hadn't drank in a month and a half, so that was the furthest thing from my mind. We're just there. And I went outside and I was on the phone. So my friend, she came out and she was smoking a cigarette. Something told me that one second it crossed my mind to ask her for a cigarette, but I hadn't smoked in 2 weeks. So it was like, well, you don't do that anymore. What would you do that for? That was the only time. And that was on August 13th, 2016. So it's not hard. One thing I want people to know is that sure, you could do the late work. I've been to meetings, and only because my friends, some of my friends go there and real heavy, like in the that community.
Yeah.
I guess you call it the NA. I don't know if you could say it on there, but they are really into that. So I go and be with them, and I know a lot of people through there, but that wasn't my advice, and that's not. I don't practice it. I don't know anything about the 12 steps, even though I worked at a drug rehab. I don't know anything about a lot of the tenets, because that wasn't my thing. I'm just free and clear of it. You know what I mean?
So you have a very unique situation on how you overcame the use of drug and alcohol. For the young men, even some older men that are abusing drug and alcohol to this day, what piece of advice, piece of mentorship or sponsorship could you give them to overcome that situation? And listen, we're all, everybody's not spiritually involved. You got some brothers that don't go to church, some brothers that don't believe in God, or they have different beliefs, right? Where your situation is a little bit different because you're saved. You believe in the Lord. So what would you say to those people that don't and are suffering from drug and alcohol addiction, to kind of help them and guide them in the right direction to stop?
Well, if you want to stop, I feel like if they want to stop, it's easy to say just do it, but I know that it's not. Now, mind you, there have been times before when I wanted to stop. I mean, like 2 or 3 years in, I did drugs for 9 years. Well, even longer than that, if you're talking about smoking weed and drinking and all this stuff, a long time. But when you get to the point that that's not what you no longer want to do, you got to, first of all, look for something different, and fill that time with something else. Now I am saved from drugs and alcohol, and I leave it at that. I don't give anybody any image of that. This person, because I'm not. I'm just this. The Lord saved me from drugs and alcohol. That's my testimony for drugs and alcohol. So for people who don't want to do that, it's just simple as finding a replacement, first of all, and if you don't want to, if you have a problem, now some people could drink, right? They go to parties and some people smoke cigarettes, some people, but if you have a problem and you know that it's something that is disrupting your life in some kind of way, then you find a way to change it. And if you realize that it is a substance, if you realize this is like drugs, alcohol, or even cigarettes, some substance that's disturbing your life, you sit down and analyze. First of all, I guess you would think, why do I do that? What is wrong? Like when I started drinking, I was 15, right? And that was the first time, and I realized that I could talk to people. You know what I mean? And I was not so I wasn't shy. Believe it or not, I'm shy to this day. I'll talk, but I think that's a nervous condition. People start things for different reasons and forget why they started them. Just like I'll tell you now what I know for sure, and this was not my story. I think when I first started taking Percocets, painkillers, you could see everything through rose-colored glasses, and everything is so nice and beautiful. And then when you're not doing that, everything is gray, and it gets to the point where you're living for it. And the same way, then you get introduced to oxycodone, maybe, well, that's the same, but OxyContin and all kinds of morphine, and then it just goes into a whole bunch of stuff. But you forget why, you even started in the first place. Now, what I do know is that a lot of young men, rappers contribute to this too, but there's this theory, and it is a reality, that you could last longer in bed if you're taking perks. For some reason, you just, whatever. We all been through it. Well, people that do those, and you just don't die. You might fall asleep, but you're going. And I've heard people recite lyrics, and it's like, well, you're telling them this, and then they realize it, but you're doing this to stay hard, but you're not realizing that you're doing a drug that's addictive, and then ultimately you're hooked on it, and there's no way to do that. You're not a rapper. So, if you're working a 9 to 5, and at the time, if you're making like even $600 a week, at least $550 is going to that if you could help it. And so, but you don't see that part of it. And when you're so deep in it, you're only living for a drug. You know what I mean? So I think you have to see yourself different. I wanted to be this person that didn't do drugs or alcohol. I wanted to be, first of all, I wanted to stop going to jail over probation violations. It's the biggest waste of time. Now, I'll tell you, county jail on a probation violation, and please don't, don't be upset with this, but it is summer camp, basically, and I went and I enjoyed myself. However, is the biggest waste of time. You're missing your family out there, and God forbid somebody die, and it's happened to me. I was in there. You don't want to, you just don't want to do that, but also, people lose it. People that have kids, they distance themselves from the kids. I only walked the dog when I was high, and like I said, I was high all the time, but if I was coming down and I didn't walk them, water and plant, and just anything that you do the dishes, clean up and everything. But if you're not high, you out chasing the drug. You're not worried about that. So I wanted to change. So if you want to change, that's the first thing I could say to somebody. Find ways to do it. A lot of people go to NA meetings and they use those rehabs and stuff. However, I worked at a rehab and I see people come back over and over and over again because they're being forced to, or because they hit rock bottom and, they'll go on some kind of maintenance, you know what I mean? And they could still be high or whatever. So you have to see yourself in a different place, visualize what you want first.
So let's talk about the trauma that led up to, if there was any trauma that led up to the root of the addiction. Like what led up to the root of you?
Trauma. There was plenty. Nothing particularly that drove me to drugs. Not really anything that I wanted to forget. My thing was, like I said, I was shy, and I realized that I could talk to people when I was drunk. Smoking weed, I was hanging with the older kids. I was 11. And I think the one next to my age was 13. The oldest one was 21. And it started with, smoking the babysitter cigarettes when I was 5 because I wanted to see the light up. I wasn't even inhaling them. And I think I was blowing out instead of,
Yeah, I mean, at 5, you don't know how to.
I do that. Take her Marlboros and light it on the stove and go out back and do that. So when I was about 10 or 11, hang with the older kids, and they said, no, you wasting it. So it was, puff and inhale, and that was that. Then a couple months later, I think I was 12, but we were smoking weed, right? And it was a scary feeling, but it was kind of amazing at the same time. But then it was scary again because my sister came around the corner and said, "Mommy wants you," and I'm like, "Oh man!" And I'm walking around the corner like, just I was eating an orange slice, that candy that had the
Yeah.
sugar in there, and it felt like I was chewing it forever and all this stuff. But I don't remember any trauma. Now I didn't have a I did not have the ideal childhood. You know what I mean? And there was weed smoke around me, but there was also another element that I didn't really. It's like I discovered it, but it was because I was, and I'm talking vaguely right now because but I knew a lot, as a child, and it wasn't even nothing I had to see. It was like I was just gifted.
Hmm.
I put it that way. I was very intelligent. Now I'll say, what was I walking at 9 months, and I was potty trained at a year. So what do we call that? Fast. I was
Yeah.
fast, and so I wasn't very inquisitive. But stuff, and even to this day, stuff just falls in my lap, and I don't be wanting to know half of the stuff now. But anyway, I was burdened with that, and all this stuff is in the back of my mind. So I was very pinned up. You know what I mean? And I was the oldest of four, so I was very responsible. But um, smoking weed, even smoking cigarettes, or hanging out helped me like lose my inhibitions,
Hmm.
and so I wasn't so I don't know how you call it, stiff. I wasn't so stiff then. I am now, but I wasn't so stiff at that time. And then even to this day, I have a thing, I guess, of being stuck up or whatever, but because there's things that were going on around me, I didn't know who was causing it, or I didn't
Hmm.
know who was the drug dealer or whatever. So I treated everybody bad.
Hmm.
And that was my security blanket, but it was also my confidence, that I
Right.
wasn't getting that wasn't nobody smiling in my face that was doing some shady stuff behind my back, you know. So that's the only traumatic part I could think of, which was probably all in my own mind, but the stuff that was really going on, was somebody else's self destruction. So I think curiosity and just that fun part, because it is fun in the beginning. People would do cocaine so they could dance around all night long, but
So, guys, at no point during this time are we promoting the use of drug and alcohol. We are simply telling a story to try to help our viewers and our listeners navigate through if they may or may not have a drug addiction. You heard it here first on Bupodcast. Dante Hilbert is here, and he's telling his story on how he was saved and delivered from the addiction of drug and alcohol. What's some of the things that you're doing to keep your mind off of the addiction? I mean, I know it's been 9 years, but like you said before earlier, you have to want the change and you have to find something to replace it. So what's some of the things that you found after you were saved and delivered, obviously, to replace that urge per se?
Well, one thing about it, I always wanted to work.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had my first job when I was 11. Even though through my addictions, I worked. Even though the money was going, I was working. You know what I mean? So that's something I wanted to do. But I wanted to work and I wanted to be productive.
Mm-hmm.
So at the time that I had gotten saved, I had just got out of jail like 6 months before then, and coincidentally, I wasn't working during that time. So the very first Monday, like I said, I got saved on Thursday and I got drunk on Friday. But over that weekend, that Monday morning, I went down to the community center, down the street from the house. I live with my mom, by the way. I wasn't never ashamed of that because that probably kept me out of a lot, but it kept me humble too, I guess. Okay, so I went down to the community center and I started volunteering, right? Because I wanted to work. So I got up every day and I treated that like my job, And what they did was, one thing they did was like HIV testing, and I don't have HIV, but I know people. Not even people. I know the statistic. You know what I
Right.
mean? In the gay community, first of all, but particularly in the African American community, particularly in the city of Philadelphia. And so they were. I guess different places gets funding by having it. Anyway, I started volunteering for that place, and giving people job resources. I ain't have one myself, right? But giving people job resources. But that was my, and it was a volunteer, and I was also taking care of my community service because I needed to do that too. I was supposed to do community.
It all makes sense. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, from I had community service to do since 2007, so this was 2016. But it's just getting busy, right? And so, like I said, and then when I stopped smoking cigarettes, it was drinking water, and I hated water, and I have no flavor to it. So I put lemons in there, and so when I got a couple dollars, I would go get lemons, and I would put it in my water. The lady at the community center, it was two older ladies there. And I love paper towels. And so I would steal them,
Steal paper towels. To do, what were you doing with them?
I would dry my hands with them. I mean,
okay.
It was, this is a whole nother conversation. But the way I would get the perks sometime if I didn't buy them, was different hospital runs and prescription, all this involved, And so you're in CVS and there's paper towels and magazines and soda to take the pills with and pens to do the crossword puzzles with and soap or dishwashing liquid or whatever I wanted, and I took it. So the lady came up to me. It was all that stealing went out the window when I got saved too. Forgiveness, all kinds of stuff just flooded me. So that I knew it wasn't just like abstaining from drugs. But anyway, she came to me and she said, she gave me $20, right? And she said, this is for me and the other lady. You know what I did? I went across the street and I bought 2 rolls of paper towels and whatever else I needed during that time, or wanted, little stuff. You know what I mean? So it was that keeping busy, and it was eventually, of course, I got a job, and then I wanted to move out of my mother's house. Right now, no job. Right, I wanted to move out of my mom's house. I went to, and this is what I mean: seeing what you want and just going for it because you don't have that obstacle in your way. You know what I mean? And I'm like, well, let me try this. So I went down to PHA, right? And this was a month after I got off drugs. And I went to PHA to apply for all the housing projects. So me not having no car fare, I figured I'd walk down 16th Street, down 17th Street to the 12, because the PHA was on 16th and Ridge, 17th and Ridge. So I walked down 17th Street. I'm going to walk down to Walnut Street and get on the 12, and it'll take me home. When I got around Spring Garden, I saw these people walking by, and I'm a people person. So I'm just watching them, and while I'm walking by, where are they going? They was going to school, So I walked into community college the same day and applied to go to school because I wanted to do this. What do you want to go to school for? Behavioral health, because I'm volunteering at this place where, people come through, you know what I mean? After all that, I continued to walk down to Walnut Street. When I got off the bus, I'm walking up the block, and this guy is cleaning out this house that I never paid attention to, And I said, what are you doing with that house? He says, I don't know, call the owner. She lived in Florida. I called the owner, and, I'm a single male, no children, blah, blah, blah. Me and my cousin wound up renting that house across the street 2 weeks later. And I'm not saying it's like things just started happening because I wanted them to happen. But like I said, because that element was out of my life, I felt like I could do anything, but I didn't have a plan, but I had that desire to move forward.
Right.
And I think that that's one thing that can encourage people to do what you want for yourself. Some people want a better relationship with their kids. Some people want, I don't know what they want, but whatever you want. I know they don't want to be bound to, and as like I said, if you're just doing this and you're having a good time or whatever, then fine. Maybe not fine, but it's fine until it becomes not fine. But if you need to change or you don't want to do that anymore, then see yourself somewhere different. Because just checking into, and I'm not going against treatment centers because I'm sure it changed lives, but checking into some place just because you don't know what to do next, it could help you or it could not, so I got it, like anything, it all starts up here, and here and honest and truthfully.
So what are your beliefs on treatment and therapy? Like, do you, me personally, I feel like a lot of really younger and some of the older generation really frowned upon community outreach programs, therapeutic programs. What do you feel? Do you feel that our community, especially for our youth, is lacking that therapeutic side that community outreach at?
I definitely think it's a stigma on therapy. Now, I never been to it. I probably need it, but I never been to a therapist. I know some now, like you were saying about our community. Now, I know a lot of white people that go to or the people of different ethnicities that have therapists. And one time I went to therapy. Well, I went to therapist for a while, but it was just so I could get Xanax. You see the therapist, and then you see the psychiatrist, and you get the whatever. So, that wasn't a sincere thing, so I never really
Right.
experienced it. Well, you know what? The one therapist, he tried to convince me that all my sisters and brothers were on cocaine. Well, none of them were on cocaine, so he was crazy. I know that much.
He was on cocaine. No, I'm just playing.
Well, I mean, who knows? He wanted he was something else. He was
But my take on it. As a young black man that actually went to therapy, yeah, I
how
did.
old were you?
It was recent. I'll
Oh,
be 35 in August, so this was last year.
okay.
I did it for about 7 or 8 months, and I was one of those young guys that really, in the beginning, I like frowned upon it. I was just like, oh, I don't need therapy. I don't want nobody in my business. It's just somebody that's just going to know my business and give me bad advice, and I really frowned upon it for a very, very long time. And thankful enough for my mother and my wife. With them by my side, they kind of like coached me and guided me. Like, it's okay to talk to somebody outside of us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go get that unbiased opinion. So I signed up for therapy, and it was great. My first couple months, obviously not knowing that individual, it was a little rocky. But like after like 3 months, I looked forward to it. Like it was so much weight lifted off of my shoulders. I felt a lot better. I was able to interact better with my children. I was able to interact better with my wife and with other family members. With just everything that I had going on, like therapy really helped me. Shout out to Ayana too.
All right,
Yana.
Ayana.
She's
That's your
my
therapist?
my therapist. She's a very, very great therapist. Still to this day, obviously I'm not in therapy anymore, but everything that she's given me and everything that she's taught me, like sometimes when I find myself, relapsing and going back into that dark place, I just remember some of the things that we talked about to kind of bring me back. So now to this day, I'm a very, very firm believer of, therapy. Like it's okay to talk to somebody outside of your family members and your friends, because look, let's just be real with each other. Like family and friends aren't always going to be honest with you,
No.
right?
No.
They're not always going to tell you what you need to hear.
Right.
They're going to tell you what they think you want you to hear. And, it's not always good to only talk to family because, again, they're not going to always give you the best advice.
Or they're going to tell you they want you to hear.
Right. And, when you're talking to a third party, we'll say, it doesn't even have to be a therapist. It could be, a community outreach program, whatever. They have no reason to judge you. They have no reason to choose sides because they don't know you. They don't know your story until you tell it
Right.
to them.
Right.
And then it's their job, their duty, and their obligation to listen and respond in a professional manner and give you good advice. So there's no judgment there. So like I said, it helped me a lot. And, I won't speak to like push therapy on anybody because I don't want anybody to push anything on me. But I believe that a lot of the things that's happening in the younger community with, the younger brothers my age and a little bit younger with our youth is because these guys don't know how to deal with their emotions.
Right.
They don't know how to deal with emotions because it's this. Looking at the statistics, they're looking at, this picture that the society painted for us as young black men. You know, we get, you know, you can't be yourself. You got to be tough. You got to be a gangster. You listening to the rap. You doing this. You doing that.
Right.
You know, we carry so much on our shoulders that we feel like we have to do those things.
Right.
You know.
Right.
It's time to start taking those masks off. It's time to start taking those masks off, and let's really be men. And, you know, it's okay to not be okay. Like, it's okay to, you know, go in the corner and cry. Let it out.
Right.
Who says that you know, that it's feminine to for a man to cry? Like, I don't believe that. Like,
they have tear ducts like everybody else.
Like, I believe that, you know, if a lot of the youth and even some of the older generation of your generation, like, if they actually took, y'all too. We're not just going. It's some of y'all old heads too. But
how old am I?
Oh, I don't know. How old are you? 40?
Yeah.
Okay.
41. Well, you said y'all, like the older generation.
The older generation. Okay. So we'll say 40.
Our generation, say that. So make me feel.
I'll be 35.
That's the same generation.
That you got me by how many years?
6. That's not a generation.
You're right. That's not a generation.
But you must feel that I'm that old. I'm just that much older.
I mean, I didn't know how old you were until you just said it. It was just an assumption, so I apologize for my
There's no need to apologize.
Assumption. But again, I think that in a community, you know, people a lot of males, younger and older, need to get a little bit more intact with with their feminine side. And I'm not talking about, I'm talking about being able to express your emotions.
Their emotions.
You know, being able to share that and not feeling like you got to wear a mask and you got to be, gangster and hard. Like, just be yourself.
Now, going to therapy in your 30s, your early 30s, do you suggest that? Do you wish you had gone sooner, or do you suggest that kids go? I mean, like, what age do you think is more?
So that's the thing. Like, you can't. Therapy doesn't have a age. Like, I don't feel like, like, I was uncomfortable for years, and yes, I probably should have went to therapy in my early teens. Probably. Like, 18, 19, I probably should have seeked out therapy, but I thought, that I was fine, and I thought that I didn't believe in it. Like, I didn't want people in my business, and I just didn't, again, looking at the picture that society had painted for me, I just didn't believe in it, but to this day, I can say that I probably should have went to therapy in my early teens, because I feel like it would have helped me, coach me a lot earlier, and I could have dealt with some of my things earlier versus attacking them. I mean, I'll be 35 in August, and I've just sought out therapy like last year, 2 years ago.
So, like, anybody suggested to you back when you were a teen?
I don't really remember. I don't recall. I don't think so. I mean, when I was a younger adult, like 18, 19, no.
Because it seems like a lot of people, like, therapy is something that we, like you said, we associate with other groups or more upper class people. You see it on TV, and people are talking about their therapists and their analysts, but people in the hood is talking about, I don't know, not talking at all, so
right.
I think that maybe these young people, they're being affected. They go to the Chinese store and eat pizza rolls for dinner because there's nothing available. That probably affects them, or
Yeah, it's a lot of different narratives, right? Number one, most on the forefront, most importantly, like us as black men, as black fathers, young or old, if you have a child, you need to take care of that child. A lot of the mothers have been stepping up and playing both roles, playing a mother and a father. So shout out to all of them.
Yes.
And when doing so, when a woman has to take on the responsibility of being the mother and the father, she's never home because she's working, maybe 2 or 3 jobs trying to provide for the children, therefore leaving the children not purposely unattended or anything of that sort, but they don't have the guidance of now an actual father figure, and then their mom is out working, 2 or 3 jobs trying to take care of them,
Right.
and then now they're just doing any and everything. They're just outside, no supervision, just doing a whole bunch of stuff that they wouldn't do if they had the actual father figure in the home.
Right.
So look, I created this platform for that reason,
Yes.
to try to shed light on different things, different traumatic experiences that people in my generation and older, to try to just help people feel comfortable with expressing themselves and telling their stories,
Right.
and just trying to help them heal and be there for them as much as I can, because everybody got a story to tell and everybody's story is different. But at the end of the day, like, it's okay to not be okay, and we need more brothers in the community and brothers to be around us to teach us and show us that, like,
Right.
you just be yourself. Like, it's okay to be who you are.
Be you.
Be yourself.
Right.
And obviously that's what Bupodcast stands for, is to be you, to be yourself. We are unmasking, we're taking the mask off, we're standing up for each other and for ourselves. And
Well, I got a question. How do we, and this is what I've been trying to do, like on my personal platform, how do we reach those before they even put the masks on? Like those 8 and 14-year-olds, the 18 and 22, 30-year-olds, you know what I mean? At that point, how do we gather them? How do we reach them? The kids that's not going to sit down and listen to a podcast.
it's going to take a group of people that share the same common interests to do that.
Right.
You also need to have somebody in that same age category that's not on that type of time, that can also be a part of the group to help reel them in, right? Because let's just be real, like, that age category don't want to listen to anybody much older than them. But I think the moral of the story is to do something like that, first and foremost, you need a group of brothers that share the same common interest. That's number one.
Yes.
Once you get that and everybody's on the same page, then you got to hit the streets. You got to hit the streets, and you got to actually do the work. And look, you might get told no 100 times. You might get told, oh, hey, get out my face, and all that kind of stuff. If you all share the same common interest, like 1 out of every 10th person is going to retain the information and actually want the change. And you don't want to push too much and pry too much. You just want to kind of get your point across and leave the door open for those individuals to come aboard.
Most definitely.
But yeah, I definitely want to broaden my followers and my viewers and my listeners. I'm also trying to grab that audience as well, and it's kind of it's really hard to reach down and try to grab the youth, because they don't want to listen to anybody. They just don't. Like those YNs is what our generation call the YNs and the YBs. Like, a lot of them grew up without father figures, so they don't respect older men.
Right.
They're because their old heads are like 3 years older than them.
True.
You understand what I'm saying? So somebody that got them by 20 years, they don't want to hear nothing that we got to say, because they old heads are like 3 years older than them.
Right.
So it's really going to take a village
It does.
to do that.
It does.
But it's platforms like these, right? Like mine, like yours, and like it's 100,000 of them out there, to just keep doing what we're doing,
Right.
and eventually, the change will come. We all just got to have the same common interest. So that's why, I said to you a couple of days ago, like, let's collaborate and because I feel like we share the same common interest. Your story is amazing. You have a great accomplishment, and you just shared it here today. So I think that, if we were to collaborate and put our brains together, like, we can really create something very, very powerful for the youth, very powerful for not just the youth, just very powerful for Black men.
Yes.
In whole.
Yes.
For our community, for structure, for guidance, for accountability, and just making a place of comfort, a place of peace, and a place of safety.
Yes.
Dante, man, it's been a very, very great conversation, and I appreciate you coming today. Bupodcast, this is season 1, episode 17 with Dante Hilbert. This is the final and last episode of season 1. Season 2, we got a lot in store for season 2. We will be rebranding. When I say rebranding, that means we will be changing the podcast name. The name will be posted on Instagram in the next 2 or 3 days. I'm currently working with my graphic designer to do my logo.
Okay.
I already have the name picked out. I just don't want to spoil
it yet.
I don't want to reveal it just yet. Just because, it's a lot of moving parts that I'm working on right now, but everything is already pretty much signed, sealed, and delivered. Like I said, I'm just waiting on my graphic designer to send me the logo, and everything will be announced, hopefully, if not by the end of this month, like the first or second week of May. I'm very, very excited because I think that, all that I have to offer with my podcast, all that I speak on about Black men, healing, mental health, I feel like the rebrand, the name, the logo is going to really all come together.
Drive it home.
To really drive it home. I have some amazing guests like yourself that's going to be joining us for season 2, and I'm very, very excited to do this rebrand.
Excellent. I think your podcast is like it's a wonderful initiative, and the mission is just what's needed, and I'm behind you 100%.
Thank you. I appreciate it. This, I felt like I always had the gift to help people, to talk. I just never had the outlet. Like, I never really thought about doing this. Because, like I said, I've struggled with, some things, with mental health, and I felt like outside of therapy, like, what is my real outlet outside of being a father, a husband? Like, I just felt like my life was like just on like a repeat.
Yeah.
Like, wake up, go to work, come home, husband,
right?
Kid, dad, like,
right.
And I needed a outlet.
Yeah,
and I know that there's a lot of young men and older men that suffer from some of the things that I suffer from, which is just the everyday life, the everyday life struggles.
Yeah.
Why not create a platform where I can invite men, young men, older men to come, and we can have real live conversations.
Right.
And express ourselves and feel safe in the space with expressing ourselves and telling our stories to help one another and the viewers and the listeners. So that's what my podcast is for. And again, I'm happy that you came. Your story is very unique. It's very touching. And listen, guys, I hope that Dante's story today help whoever needed to hear it. If Dante did it, you can do it. If Dante did it, you can do it.
Certainly.
It is strength in numbers. If you don't have the resources that you need, There's always, like Dante said, find something to replace. Find something to replace, whether that's going to the gym. I don't, walking the dog, boxing, playing basketball, playing video games. Like there are other outlets that you can utilize to help with that. There's also a lot of community outreach programs in the city of Philadelphia as well that you can also, go to for help as well. So don't feel like you are alone, because you're not. You're really not. Again, Dante is here. He shared the story today live on Bupodcast, and it's a great, great, great story. And I want to tell you that I'm proud of you.
Thanks, Eric.
It's, hearing, not knowing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not knowing your story and hearing it today. You are a very, very strong Black man for being able to just walk into that church and be saved and delivered, and never, ever use drug and alcohol again after that day. Like that is a major, major, major accomplishment, and it takes a strong individual to mentally be able to do what you've done. So continue to do what you're doing, because whatever you're doing for 9 years, it's been working. So I don't care what it is. just keep doing it. And, and just know now, not only do you have a friend, you also have a brother that will be here to support and help you continue that journey of sobriety for another 40 plus years.
Yeah, I'm so old.
Yeah, no. So before we close out, let's talk about you used to do. You have a platform.
I had a platform
that we're going to try to bring.
I'm going to try and revamp. I still have ideas and notes for it, but I was Don Hilbert's. That's me. I just shortened it to Don Hilbert's Minding Your Own Business. So I'm minding your own business, but
so you're minding my business. Got it.
So what initially, I don't want to say the name, but it was to like kind of mirror our show, and it was to get people on. And I shouldn't say it on here, but anyway, it's a way to demonstrate how you could do things without violence. That was that. And then the next thing I had was sobriety stories. And where me and my friend I was telling you about, who were just saved from drugs miraculously, where we talked about the good parts of sobriety. I know, like I said, I've been to meetings where people say what they're feeling and how terrible they feel today, and this, that, and other. And we were here to talk about the good things, which lasted for a couple of weeks, and then you get sidetracked. So I will revive those things and let you know, or we'll collaborate on something new.
You said it was called Sobriety
Stories.
I think wholeheartedly, 150%, that you should
revamp that.
Because again, today, you came here and you told your story, but that platform for yourself, just doing it for yourself to teach and show, people that may be going through that similar situation, I think is good. Also, it's something to do. Something to keep your mind off of things. And it's something that, will help and keep you on the straight and narrow. I think that you should definitely think about really considering sharing, the good side of that. Because a lot of people always focus on the bad of addiction, but
they talk about the struggle. A lot of people that stop doing drugs, and how hard it is to go day by day, and we are just talking about living life. The same way we talked about that here is how that's not a part of your life anymore.
Right.
So move forward and forget it. I mean, maybe some people can't. So, we're here to help and to put it into a different perspective. I think that helps people. And thank you. I will start that again.
Britt, and let me know. Like I said, you got my support. Dante Hilbert, y'all. Bupodcast. You heard his story first on Bupodcast. Nowhere else.
Nowhere else. Bupodcast.
Bupodcast. Nowhere else. Thank you guys for tuning in. Again, Dante Hilbert is here. Dante, let them know where they can find you at on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I don't know.
Instagram, the Dirty Lowdown 41. I guess they'll change when I turn 42.
You gonna change it to 42?
Every year. It's been the Dirty Lowdown since 35. 35, the Dirty, THEDIRTY, Lowdown, LWDOWN. 41 on Instagram, and simply Dante Hilbert, DONTE HILBERT. You can find it on Instagram or Facebook, Dante Hilbert. On YouTube is Dante Hilbert too, DONTE HILBERT.
And by the way, his YouTube channel is very popular. I think you got about
1,500
subscribers.
Yeah. It's just music. I like music, so it's music and some funny things that I find hilarious that nobody else does, but apparently somebody else does. And also, the Don Hilbert's Minding Your Own Business was supposed to go on like a local television station, and I wound up putting it on YouTube. So all that's there. Everything.
What was the local television station? If you don't mind me
asking. I think it was channel 44 WMCN, which is still feasible, but I think we had a photographer. What do you call a guy that does the video thing? Videographer. He had like 7 cameras and everything, and paid him once a week. And we did this as an initiative. Mm-hmm. We talked about. I figure a lot of people, the kids were running in the Walgreens, stealing potato chips or something. I saw it on the news one July 4th. And so I said, well, if they get potato chips, why don't they get jobs? And so I had my cousin who was a human resources director come on and talk about how to get jobs. I had my childhood friend come on to talk about how we played and how we fought with our fists, and then how we just facets of growing up, because like you said, you want to be relatable to people.
Right.
You never know what part of your story, I mean, even from like it's smoking cigarettes at 5 years old, I was thinking what these kids have experienced and what they'll say, oh, well, that's, in turn, so it's a lot of that in there. Check it out. It's on YouTube. You got to scroll all the way down because there's some funny business in between, but you'll find it.
So again, you heard it here first, Bupodcast, Dante Hilbert here. We're going to close out the session. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. TheReal.Bupodcast 215 on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Again, we are rebranding in the next 2 to 3 weeks, I'll say. New name coming, new logo coming. Again, this is the last episode of season 1. This is episode 17. Hilbert, thank you. I appreciate you coming. Appreciate you blessing my season closing episode to season 1. It was a great honor and a great pleasure to have you here today. Do you have any closing remarks or anything else you want to say before we close out to the people of Bupodcast, to all my followers and listeners?
Thank you to all the Bupodcast followers and listeners. Thank you for supporting Bupodcast Incorporated.
Not yet.
Thank you for supporting Bupodcast. Thank you for making season 1 a success, and look forward to the changes and the rebranding of season 2. 2 to 3 weeks.
2 to 3 weeks, y'all. Bupodcast. Again, thank you to all 17 guests, Dante included. You guys know who you are. I think I should, if I can remember everybody, to try to shout everybody out, but I don't want to miss anybody, so I'm not going to do that. Everybody, all 17 guest artists. I had a bunch of great individuals, that came and blessed me this season on Bupodcast. So I appreciate all y'all. I love y'all. Thank y'all. Season 1 has been a success. 17 episodes in, ending with Dante Hilbert. Again, Bupodcast, we signing out. I love y'all and I appreciate y'all. Peace. Dante, I appreciate it. Thank you for coming.